Okay, so you've made your first program. The next thing we need to get started with is variables. Now, what is a variable? It is a way to store information in the computer so you can use it for later and so you can change it to become different values. It's like a box, and inside the box you can store different types of things like numbers and words and binary values like 1 or 0, true or false. You can even store lists of things. You can store a list of words or a list of numbers or a list of other objects that we can create new types of things using variables. So really this is like the world of nouns. So in English we have nouns and verbs. In programming we have variables and functions. Okay, so let's make a variable and then store something inside of it. The way we make a variable in Python is we just type anything that's alphabetical. However, it can't have spaces. So if you say x and then set it equal to 1, that is a variable that stores the number 1, and the name of the variable is x. So let's make another variable called y. Let's store the number 3, and let's make another variable called name, and let's store a string which must have quotes to denote that it's not a number, but it's a word or a string of characters. And we can put the name SpongeBob in there. Let's make another name. We can even store true or false values. So I can say this is true, or I can make another variable and call it anything I want. I can say I like fish, set that equal to false. And there's lots of types of variables. I have shown you 3 types of variables. This is a number. You can even do 1.9, 3.4. Numbers are not supposed to have quotations on them. Strings are supposed to have quotations, and you can put any series of characters you want in between them. I can say this is a sentence and not a name. I can add anything I want in another name and say this is another sentence and not a name also. So this is just a series of characters that gets stored in a variable we call name. We can call it anything we want though. We can rename it to sentence. We can rename this to random variable name. So when you make multiple words in a variable, you do not have to do this. You can make anything capital or lowercase, but normally when you make a variable name, the standard practice programmers use is the first letter is lowercase, and any other word after that you capitalize. So variable, V in variable is capitalized, and N in name is capitalized. We call this camel case. It's a very common way to name variables. So what is the point of variables? Later on we can reassign them and change the values because they can vary. There's also variables that don't change. It's just a matter of what you want to use it for. So x is assigned to 1.9, y is assigned to 3.4, and we've assigned all these other variables in order. And as the program walks down line by line, one by one, later on we can reassign the value of x, for example, to be something bigger. So like 10. And if we print it out again, you will see scrolling down, we have the value 10, and it is no longer 1.9 because we have reassigned the value x to 10. If you put commas separating each variable in the print statement, you can actually have more than one thing to print at a time, and it will separate it by spaces. So if we do x comma y, hit play, scrolling down, we see 10 space 3.4. That's what the print statement is supposed to do. It's supposed to print out whatever you put here and then put a space wherever you have a comma, and you can add as many as you want. So let's put the rest of the variables we have in the print statement just so you can see how it works. And you can actually hit tab once you get recommendations on what to type. So I'm going to type yet, and it's going to know, okay, the only thing that I think you could be wanting to type here is the only variable that makes sense to type here, which is yet another variable. So I'm going to hit tab, and it will autocomplete what I wanted to type. You can do capitals if you want, but that's usually For things that do not change, typically people make variables that do not change by capitalizing those variables. In this case, it can still change. It's a normal variable, but in the future, you just remember you can see there's different practices in how you can name variables and when to use capitals and when not to use capitals. For now, don't worry about that. You can name them however you like. Just don't start them with numbers. But you can have numbers inside your variables, just don't start with them. I can name this sentence 2 if I wanted to, but I have to keep the consistency of the variable. If I want to use this variable later in my code, I have to ensure that this sentence is also changed. If I change the original one, I have to change anywhere else I use it. So I'm going to put 2 right here also, so it doesn't complain. If I hit play, you'll see it prints out everything all in a row because each of these separate variables were all printed right here. So let's just focus on what we have here. You see I took out the variables here and now these are being underlined. If I try to play this, you'll see there's an error. It says sentence 2 is not defined. You cannot use a variable unless you define it before you try to use it. If I try to define sentence 2 right here, it's not going to fix anything because it's going to look at this program in order. It's going to say, I now know what X is because you've declared it. You've defined what it is here. I know what Y is now. I'm going to reassign the value X to something else. I'm going to go down to the print statement, and the program just walks line by line when you run it from the top to bottom. And so remember the order is important here. So this print statement, it's going to print 10, it's going to print 3.4, and then it's going to be like, wait a minute, this is not defined above. So I am going to not even try to run this line of code, and I'm going to tell you right here, I have an issue, and name error is the error of the issue that it's giving us. It just says sentence 2 is not defined. So let's go ahead and define that above. And now you can see it is not underlined anymore. However, the rest of these are underlined because we got rid of them. They're no longer defined above. Let's try to run this again and scroll down. And you'll see the next thing is it's complaining that random variable name is not defined because we did not define it above. So I don't think we need the rest of these variables to print out anymore. Let's just take these out and see if it runs and scroll down. 10, 4, hi, this is a sentence. These are the 3 variables we printed out, and it's working as we expected because we've defined them above, and that's how it works. Hopefully this is a good introduction for you to understand the basics of variables, how you can assign and reassign them, how you can print them out, and be sure to practice this on your own. Try different values, and if you go to w3schools.com and go to Python variables, you can go ahead and read through this. I highly recommend doing that. Just get familiar with how variables work here. In this example, try it yourself. Just continue reading through. And if you see something like this, this is not going to change anything in the code and how it runs. This is just for your own personal statements, and everything after a hashtag on a line is just something you can add to comment. So you can go ahead and add comments if you want. You do not need to have everything here that's in green. The rest of this here, here, and here is the actual code. You can try going through all this, running all the code, and we will get to types. And I recommend for homework you study casting. If you want to specify the data type of a variable, this can be done with casting, and sometimes this is very necessary and important. So go ahead, read through all this, and I will see you in the next video.